everyone, this is Pause or Repeat. Here we figure out whether a game is really worth your time and money. Today's game is Hades 2. The highly anticipated sequel to the first Hades, Hades 2, just recently released into early access. As such, the game isn't fully completed yet, but is most of the way there as is. But keeping that in mind, let's look at how the sequel stacks up to the original, starting with the gameplay. The gameplay of Hades 2 is right away familiar to those who have played the first game. It's still a roguelike where you'll progressively get stronger, as will your enemies. Olympian god boons make a return as well, so expect those. It is not required to have played the first one, however, as the combat is a little different anyway. Starting off, you begin with a staff as your weapon of choice, with more to unlock as you go. The staff has a good bit of range on it, but there's also an added combat mechanic centered around mana usage. You have a set amount of mana per room, and you can expend it via charging up any of your abilities. Charged up abilities do extra damage, and quite a bit at that, but you will need to manage your usage to not become reliant on it due to it being a limited resource. However, this alone makes the gameplay feel different from that of the first game. Other upgrades include progressing Arcana cards, which are direct upgrades to your character, or building out the home base of the Crossroads. So all in all, very similar to the first game, albeit different and not more of exactly the same. But how about the story? The story of Hades 2, just like the gameplay, doesn't require you to have played the first game. Instead of playing as Zagreus, you take control of Millennial, sister of Zagreus and princess of the Underworld. Kronos, the Titan of Time, has taken over control of the Underworld and imprisoned Hades. Millennial, trained by the head witch Hecate, is now on a mission to stop Kronos and save the Underworld. Will it be as simple as that? Or are there other mysteries to uncover? But now the question still stands. Pause or repeat? Man, another early access being spotlighted on Pause or Repeat?
How do I know you were about to start off with that? Okay, so anybody that didn't see last week's show, we talked about Manor Lords, and yes, I've been kind of a hater over this whole concept or terminology of early access games. I feel like we're getting totally out of control with it because it's like playing the beta version of Hades 2, Henrik, is like, DICE Studios with Battlefield still trying to figure out whether it's in pre-alpha, post-alpha, or just stuck in a never-ending loop of patch notes coming soon, or hey, here's a free map, or please buy our season pass.
Hey, you know what, Chris? That's EA, and you know what EA stands for as well? Early access.
Oh!
This game, being in early access, it kind of feels almost completed.
How have I not heard
that's
that
the difference here.
That is funny, because that is such a true point, because, even though Hades 2 is labeling itself as an early access game, it's more stable than most AAA releases at launch.
Yeah, which is a good move by them because, it has a lot of hype around it.
Yeah.
The first game was a hit, and everyone's been looking at this game, anticipating the launch of the early access, not even the full launch of the full release, just the early access. And I think that they pretty much delivered on everything that the majority of people wanted.
Why is it so hard to just call it a live service single player game? Like, we already know that the studio is not going to make it a multiplayer. They've already debunked that already. I just don't understand why we just abuse the word early access game. But
I'll
anyways,
tell you why they don't want to say live service, because when you say it's live service,
then it gets
kind of expecting something different. You're kind of expecting like a battle pass or
Suicide Squad.
Shop. Yeah, something like that, Yeah,
because everything's correlated.
It's not really
badly.
live service in that sense.
Oh, gotcha. So you want to be
coming.
You want to be team early access.
Exactly.
Instead. But with Hades 2, it makes you feel like you're watching Extreme Makeover Home Edition with Ty Pennington. I don't know if anybody remembers that show back in the day on ABC. Except the all new paint and furniture. They're swapping out all the old weapons, boons, and all the pieces from the previous game, replacing a lot of the old stale snacks for fresh and juicy goods in the pantry. It is a lot of fun. What do you think, Henrik?
No, yeah, and I think it's really awesome that, they could have easily done the easy route and just copied what made the first game great and not really improved on it or even tried to. And with this one, they took the foundation of the first game's combat and storytelling, and they just tried things here and there to make it a little bit different. And I think actually they make it better than the first game to just jump into and have fun actually destroying these high elite monsters. For example, you can use mana abilities to
Yeah.
be able to high hit damage on these strong enemies. And that's something that the first game kind of lacked at the beginning because you weren't very powerful at the start. Now, in contrast, though, the game does get a bit hard later
True.
on, more
Well,
so than the
especially the
first game
finale
does.
boss, but we don't want to
So,
spoil too much for anybody.
yeah.
But like, doesn't this game feel like a great example about like some people like really hoping for like a follow up with Baldur's Gate 3, and you notice with the studio how they just didn't want to be forced into making a follow up if they didn't have to. This was a studio that's never done sequels ever in the
True.
eternity of their space, and they really wanted to pursue this task, and you can feel that energy as you're playing this game in this early access twist, because I gotta say, some of the cooler things is like the Testament of the Night, right? It's
Mm.
very similar to the original with the pack of punishment, but instead of just making you suffer and feeling like as if Spider-Man 2 didn't really have anything to offer other than just handing you a participation trophy, this version actually cranks up the difficulty with rewards, making it that much more fulfilling.
Yeah, and I think the passion, like you were saying, really does show in things like that for them wanting to make a sequel. And that's really important when it comes down to it because yeah, the stockholders or whoever's funding you could say, "Hey, we need a sequel." But if you don't really want to do a sequel, you don't have the creative energy to put towards a sequel, it might not feel like it's really got a lot of passion behind it. But this one,
Yeah.
you could tell they really did want to make a sequel and want to, still ride on that hype of the first game a bit as well, but make it different and more exciting and enjoyable. And this is a rare
Yeah.
chance for them to really ride the big hype that is behind them.
But also at the same time, Henrik, I'm gonna put it in the terminology that I heard this morning on First Take with Kendrick Perkins. I got to get on their ass a little bit, just like how your Gene back pocket. We got to get on to them because there's some things you got to make fun of a little bit with Hades 2 when it comes to the early access. Because yes, it does give off this like strong early access vibe, especially when like you got characters missing or even some of them going nameless. I mean, seriously, you couldn't come up with any kind of style of generic name. Placeholder is all that you can offer us.
Hey, at least they're saying that it's early access and that things are to come rather than, just put that in the game and not say anything.
I just thought that
I
was
can
the
appreciate
oddest
that
thing
at
ever.
least, because
that's true.
there's companies out there that would do that would just, leave it as is and be like, we'll get to it later, but not say anything,
That's
not
a
give
good
the
point.
expectation.
Because even when you beat it during its first run, they do promise you at the end of the game that a new region to explore is going to be coming out in the future. And yes, I know that is just as annoying like the ending of Diablo 4, but at least you're not having to buy an expansion to finish the story.
Yeah, it's also not Diablo 4 where, you're already paying $60-$70
Exactly.
for the game itself. And then it's
It's
throwing a
not
bunch of
complete.
live service elements at you like, "Hey, do you want to buy a horse that's about as much as the game?" Actually, sorry, scratch that. More than the game itself.
More than the game. I mean, yeah, it's so true. But in this isometric video game, it's really cool. I think a lot of gamers are going to have a lot of fun playing as the immortal princess of the underworld. And I'm going to say it right now. This is a definite repeat. I cannot wait to play the full potential or full release or whatever we're going to call it now in the year 2024. But yes, it definitely should be on everybody's radar. Hades 2 is a must play. What about you, Henrik the Wreck?
Well, the first game was the first game that I put on my Steam Deck when I got my Steam Deck initially. And this one, no exception. The second I got it, I actually installed it on my Steam Deck before I installed it on my computer.
Not on
because
the
I was
big
like,
screen?
this is definitely something that I'm going to be playing on the go. It's one of those games that you really can just hop in and out,
Fair
and
enough.
there's going to be a lot of replayability to it. So for me as well, it's a repeat.
It's a repeat. Hey, so you heard it from both Chris Collins and your boy, Henrik the Wreck.